And you're tuned into the Weekend Jazz Update with Shanti Silva. On this week's episode, it's about Thad Jones, his biography and best hits. During this summer, we're going to be talking about more of his best albums of all time. Here's a quick recap of what's coming up. In 1966, Mean What You Say marked a turning point, credited to Thad Jones' Pepper Adam Quintet and produced by Orrin Keepness. This milestone release pairs Jones' warm, birdish flugelhorn with Pepper Adams' bold baritone sax. Backed by Duke Pearson, Ron Card and Mel Lewis, it's focused, confident hard bop. The title track alone signals that Jones was thinking beyond the small group format. The same year came presenting Thad Jones, Mel Lewis and the Jazz Orchestra on Solid State, the birth of a modern big band. With heavyweights like Hank Jones, Richard Davis, Bobby Brookman and Snooky Young in the ranks, the album laid down a new blueprint for large ensemble jazz. Harmonically rich, contemporary, but still swinging hard. Then comes Live at the Village Vanguard, capturing the orchestra stretching out in real time, earning a Grammy nomination, cementing their Monday night residency as legendary. The follow-up Monday Night refined that sound, witty blues, swinging waltzes, and bold reimaginings like St. Louis blues. From quintet precision to orchestral power, these records show Thad Jones expanding his canvas, without ever losing that blues root of warmth at the center of his sound. So we're moving from small group hard bop into the birth of one of the most important big bands of the modern era. But before the orchestra fully takes over, there's a bridge record. It's a strong one. Let's start in 1966 with Mean What You Say, credited to the Thad Jones Pepper Adams Quintet on Milestone Records. This one was produced by Orrin Keepness, and he pairs two very distinct horn voices, Thad Jones on flugelhorn and Pepper Adams on baritone sax. And what a pairing it is. Thad's sound on flugelhorn is warm, rounded, almost burnished. Pepper Adams, muscular, bold, and together they form what critics later called a potent team. And that's not exaggeration. The rhythm section alone makes this record worth your time. Duke Pearson on piano, Ron Carter on bass, Mel Lewis on drums. That's an all-star post-bop foundation. Flexible, intelligent, and swinging without forcing it. Most of the material here is written by Thad. The title track, Mean What You Say, sets the tone immediately. It's confident, it's direct, it has that hard bop edge but with harmonic sophistication. The lines are tight but the solos breathe. Then there's H&T Blues, which if you've been following Thad's catalog, you know that he loved his blues framework. This one has that soulful undercurrent, it's relaxed but purposeful. Bossa Nova Over brings in a subtle Latin flavor, not in a gimmicky way, but in a way that shows how jazz in the mid-60s was absorbing global rhythms. And yes, they even cover Burt Bacharach's Wives and Lovers. It might sound unexpected, but it works, because this band knows how to interpret, not just play. There's also contributions from the rhythm section, Ron Carter's delicate Little Waltz, Duke Pearson's chant, so the album doesn't feel like a blowing section, it feels collaborative. Critic Scott Yano gave it 4.5 stars and called it high-quality hard bop unit. And that's exactly what it is, focused, confident, mature. But here's the thing, you can almost hear Thad thinking bigger. The arrangement hint is something beyond quintet writing. The voicings are richer, the ideas are stretched outwards. And that leads us directly into what happens next. Also in 1966, we get presenting Thad Jones, Mel Lewis and the Jazz Orchestra release on Solid State Records. This is the debut studio album of the Thad Jones, Mel Lewis Orchestra. And this is where modern big band history really turns a corner. Recorded in May of '66 in New York City, this album establishes a new blueprint for large ensemble jazz. This isn't a nostalgic swing band, this isn't a throwback to the 1940s. This is contemporary, harmonically adventurous, but still swinging hard. Thad on flugelhorn, Mel Lewis on drums, Hank Jones on piano, Richard Davis on bass, Sam Herman on guitar. The reed section includes Jerome Richardson, Joe Farrell, Eddie Daniels, and yes, Pepper Adams returning on baritone. The brass section is stacked with names like Snooky Young and Marvin Starr. The album's mostly Thad originals, Once Around, 3 in 1, even a big band version of Mean What You Say. There's also charts by Bobby Brookman and Tom McIntosh, which adds to the color palette. What makes this album special is the balance. The ensemble passages are tight, complex voicings, layered harmonies, but there's always space for solos. This record directly led to their legendary Monday night residency at the Village Vanguard, and that's where things really started taking off. In 1967, they released Live at the Village Vanguard on Solid State. If you want to hear an ensemble firing on all 4 cylinders, this is it. The Village Vanguard has a particular atmosphere, low ceilings, closed tables, and intimate buzz of conversation right before the downbeat, and you can feel that energy on this record. The album was even nominated for a Grammy for Best Instrumental Jazz Performance, Large Group. That tells you how quickly the jazz world recognized what was happening. Tracks like The Little Pixie stretch out past 10 minutes. This isn't just jazz ensemble precision, this is space for risk-taking. That's Freedom, composed by Hank Jones, brings a different compositional voice into the set. Don't get sassy swings with confidence. Roland Hanna steps in on piano for this live, and he brings a slightly different flavor, a bit more assertive, maybe a touch more percussive. But you hear across this album is cohesion, crisp ensemble hits, dynamic solos, and the band responding to the room. That Vanguard residency became legendary for a reason, and this album captures the spark. Then in 1968, they followed up with Monday Night, also recorded live at the Village Vanguard. By now, the band isn't just proving itself, it's refining itself. The title refers to their ongoing Monday Night series, which had become a kind of ritual in New York jazz life. The set opens with Morning Reverend, one of Thad's witty blues numbers. It has a sly humor to the phrasing, playful but sophisticated. Kids Are Pretty People shows his gift for memorable themes inside complex arrangements. And then they surprise the crowd with St. Louis blues. That's a bold move, taking a W.C. Handy classic and filtering it through modern big band harmonies. But it works. It gives the audience something familiar while still sounding contemporary. On the second side, you get tunes like The Waltz You Swang for Me as a swinging waltz, and The Second Race, another Thad original that shows how comfortable this band had become with odd forms and shifting dynamics. Critics gave it strong marks, and for a good reason. It documents the orchestra at its creative peak, tight but relaxed, structured but flexible. So in just a few years, from the quintet session of Mean What You Say to the fully realized force of the Thad Jones Mel Lewis Orchestra, you can hear a musician expanding his canvas. From 5 horns to 17, from club dates to an institution. And through it all, the same feeling remains. Thad's warm tone, his blues-rooted sensibility, and his gift for writing music that swings. So that was some insight into more of Thad Jones' best albums of all time, and you're tuned into the Weekend Jazz Update with Jashanti Silva. This is the Weekend Jazz Update with Jashanti Silva. On this week's episode, it's about Thad Jones, his biography, and best hits. Now it's time for some trendy music tips. So New York, get ready. The 7th edition of the New Colossus Festival is taking over the Lower East Side and East Village March 3rd through March 8, 2026. This 6-day independent musical showcase and coherence brings nearly 200 emerging artists from around the globe to about 10 walkable venues, including Arlene's Grocery, Pianos, Berlin Under A, and New Blue. It all kicks off Tuesday, March 3rd at Pianos, with musical showcases running 6 p.m. to 1 a.m. Wednesday through Sunday. Also, you've got free daytime parties, industry panels dubbed Colossus Conversations, and theme nights, from a shoegaze marathon to goth and industrial gatherings. The lineup, international buzz acts like Magda. It's 21 and over with badges and day passes available now. So if you care about discovering the next wave before the rest of the world does, this is your week. So that was some trendy music news on the Weekend Jazz Update with Jashanti Silva. We're going for a short break. We'll be right back after that. When we come back, we're going to be talking about some of Thad Jones' best albums of all time. Stay tuned. You're tuned into the Weekend Jazz Update with Jashanti Silva. On this week's episode, it's about Thad Jones, his biography, and best hits. During this summer, we're going to be talking about more of his best albums of all time. So now we move into the era that truly cemented Thad Jones' legacy, the big band years. Starting in the mid-1960s, he teamed up with drummer Mel Lewis and built one of the most influential modern jazz orchestras of the era. And the albums from that period, they're not just good, they're landmarks. We'll explore the quintet bridge album Mean What You Say, then dive into the orchestra's debut and those electrifying Village Vanguard recordings. From there, we'll hit the Grammy-nominated Central Park North, the masterpiece Consummation, which gave us A Child Is Born, and the Ambition and Lincoln tribute Sweet for Pops. And we close live in Munich, the Grammy-winning concert that captured the band at full power. Complex writing, deep swing, emotional balance, funk grooves, orchestral colors. And that was some insight into what's coming up during this summer, and this is the Weekend Jazz Update with Jashanti Silva. So now we're going to be talking about what many fans and critics consider the golden stretch of the Thad Jones Mel Lewis Orchestra. By the late 1960s, this wasn't just a band with potential anymore. This was a fully realized modern big band, confident, adventurous, and absolutely swinging. And the albums from this period, they're essential listening. Let's start with Central Park North, recorded in June of 1969 in New York City and released later that year on Solid State. The title references the Lincoln Center areas, uptown Manhattan energy, and that urban sophistication is baked right into the music. This album was nominated for a Grammy for Best Large Jazz Instrumental, so by 1969 the industry was officially paying attention. Most of the material here is Thad's. Side A opens up with Towaway Zone, and right away you hear something new. There's a funk edge creeping in. It's still jazz, it still swings, but the groove is tighter, punchier. The late 60s are in the air. And then there's Quietude, and the title says it all. This is one of those haunting Thad ballads. Lush voicing, space between phrases. You can hear how carefully he shapes ensemble textures. It's not just melody, it's architecture. They also cover Nat Adderley's Jive Samba, and the band handles that Latin feel with ease. Side B is where things really open up. The Groove Merchant, written by Jerome Richardson, became a crowd favorite. It's bold, funky, and rhythmically tight. And then there's the title track, Central Park North, stretching over 9 minutes. That tune became a band staple for a reason. It's expansive, layered, and designed for soloists to stretch. You can hear the full palette of the orchestra, reeds weaving in and out, brass punching accents, rhythm section locked in. Personal-wise, the band had evolved slightly. Roland Hanna on piano, Richard Davis on bass, 2 guitarists, Barry Galbraith and Sam Brown adding extra harmonic texture, Joe Temperley on baritone sax, Snook Young still anchoring the trumpet section. The album really solidified the band's late 60s sound. And then came what many consider a masterpiece. In 1970, Thad released Consummation. Even the title feels deliberate, like a culmination. Recorded in early 1970 and released on Solid State and also issued in Japan on Blue Note, this album was nominated for a Grammy and praised heavily by critics. The Penguin Guide to Jazz once called it one of the best big band records of its day. And when you listen to it, you understand why. Every composition and arrangement is by Thad Jones. The album opens with dedication, and right away you can hear something unusual. French horns and tuba layering in the intro. That's not standard big band instrumentation. It gives the music a rich, almost orchestral depth. Then comes It Only Happens Every Time, a ballad so strong that Shirley Horn later added vocals to it. It's romantic but harmonically complex. There's Tiptoe, a calm waltz that shows how effortlessly this band could swing in three. And then one of Thad's most enduring compositions, A Child Is Born. This is the debut of that piece. If you've ever heard it, you know it's tender, lyrical, almost hymn-like. It transcends big band. It became a jazz standard because it carries emotional weight without sentimentality. And then you flip to the title track, Consummation, and the mood shifts. It's fiery, driving, full ensemble power. And later tracks like a hunk, and Finger showcase up-tempo precision and tight bass writing. The band lineup expanded for this session. 3 French horns, a tuba played by Howard Johnson, Richie Kamuka on baritone sax for most tracks, Billy Harper in the reed section. It's a massive sound but controlled. If you want to hear what a modern jazz orchestra could accomplish in 1970, this is the record. Now fast forward a few years to 1975 and something ambitious, Sweet for Pop's released on A&M's Horizontal label. The Pop's in the title, that's Duke Ellington, his nickname. This is Thad paying tribute, but his own voice. It's structured as a multi-movement suite across 7 tracks, Meet in Place, a summary, the farewell. On the second side, the great one, Only for Now and the playful closer, A Good Time Was Had by All. And yes, that last title hints at an Ellington lyric. This isn't just a tribute album, it's thematic. Dee Dee Bridgewater even guests on vocals on Only for Now. French horns again adding that lush texture. You can hear the Ellington influence, the shifting moods, the tonal colors, but it's unmistakably Thad. Modern voicings, tight rhythmic interplay. And then we land in 1976 with Live in Munich. Recorded in Germany and released on Horizon Records, this album later won the 1979 Grammy for Best Jazz Instrumental Performance Big Band. The setlist is compact but powerful. It opens up with March 2 featuring Hammond organ from Rhoda Scott. That's a different texture right away. Organ against big band brass. Hank Jones' A That's Freedom gets robust treatment. Thad's Morning Reverend brings that bluesy weight. That's even an Ellington piece, Come Sunday nodding back to Duke. And then a 16-minute version of Central Park North. Solos build. The ensemble swells and recedes. The rhythm section pushes forward. It's electrifying. The parcel includes heavy hitters like Pepper Adams, Harold Danko on piano, and a powerful trumpet section led by Lynn Nicholson. The Grammy win underscores what's obvious when you listen. This band was in top form, tight, energetic, confident. So across these albums, Central Park North, Consummation, Sweet for Pops, Live in Munich, you hear the full arc. Urban funk grooves, orchestral ambition, tributes to jazz royalty, international acclaim. Thad Jones proved that big band jazz wasn't a museum piece in the late 60s and 70s. It was evolving, expanding, winning Grammys. And we've come to an end of this week's episode of the Jazz Update, so now it's time to recap what we're talking about on today's show. Born in 1923 in Pontiac, Michigan, Thad grew up in one of jazz's most remarkable families. Brother to pianist Hank Jones and drummer Elvin Jones. Largely self-taught on trumpet and flugelhorn, he came up through the Midwest band, served in the army during World War II, and then made his national mark in 1950 with the Count Basie Orchestra. That glowing solo on April in Paris, that's Thad. Lyrical poise unmistakable. By the 60s, he was stepping forward not just as a soloist, but as a composer and arranger of rare depth. So what are his 5 essential albums? First up, Detroit, New York Junction. Early Blue Note recordings, pure hard pop authority. Then the magnificent Thad Jones melodic, confident swinging. In 1966, Mean What You Say bridges into bigger ideas. That same year, presenting Thad Jones, Mel Lewis and Jazz Orchestra launches one of the most influential modern big bands ever. And finally, Consummation featuring A Child Is Born, perhaps his most enduring composition. From small group heat to orchestral brilliance, Thad Jones didn't just play jazz, he expanded what he could be. So that was a quick recap of what we discussed on this week's episode of the Weekend Jazz Update with Joshua and Silva. And on that note, we've come to an end of this week's episode of the show. Don't forget, you can check out the archives of today's show on my YouTube channel, The Weekend Jazz Update with Joshua. So I'll see you again next week. Have a great week ahead.